Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thundertron podcast. So today I'm going to be discussing and giving you my thoughts on a recently leaked listing of an upcoming Transformers Selects multi-pack, including these figures: the Deluxe Class Hound, Jazz, Wheeljack, Sunstreaker, and Trailbreaker. Now before we get into this Thundertron podcast summit, please leave your thoughts on this multi-pack in the comment section down below. Will you be picking it up or will you be passing on it? So let's now get into it. So how I'm going to structure this Thundertron podcast summit is I'm really just going to start off with the first figure and go all the way through down the list until the last figure, and that'll be it for the Thundertron podcast summit. So starting off with the very first figure, definitely the most interesting to me in my opinion, that being the Deluxe Class Hound. So this figure has actually been kind of hovering over the Transformers community for quite a while now, and there's actually a very interesting long backstory to it that I'm going to try and explain very quickly and clearly, because I'm not going to spend that much time on each individual figure, because most of these are really just going to be repaint retools, so there's not a lot to talk about. But I would have to say, of all the figures, Hound has to be the most interesting to me. But let's get into it. So for Hound, we actually knew and heard about this Hound repaint retool of the original Siege Deluxe Class Hound about 2 years ago. Where it started is Hasbro actually had this very small kind of live stream event. They only invited a few people. I don't even know who was invited, but we heard about it because people who attended were not allowed to record. They weren't really allowed to kind of repost it, or film it or anything like that, but they were allowed to take pictures and screenshots of what was mentioned and talked about. And they actually ended up, of course, on the Transformers news sites and websites, and that's kind of how we know about that Hound. He was actually shown off in hand and talked about there, along with the Origin Jazz. And of course, that Origin Jazz is a part of the buzzworthy Bumblebee Target exclusive subline, and that figure has already been out and released for quite some time now. I actually already do have it in my collection, and there is a review up on the channel right now. So we were assuming, since of course the Origin Jazz and the Hound were kind of shown off and revealed around the same time, of course, at that same sort of exclusive event, we were assuming both of them were going to be a part of that exclusive subline. And we were just waiting, they never mentioned a price, they never mentioned a pre-order date, there was no more information after that exclusive event. They just talked about it and showed it, and that was it. And of course, a couple weeks later, they did have the pre-order for Jazz, and we were like, okay, so where's the Hound pre-order? We were really assuming on that same day we were going to be able to buy that Hound. It never appeared. So it was really, really weird. And then actually just recently, we had another variation of this new Hound mold, that being the Detritus. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. If I'm saying it wrong, correct me from in the comments. I'm sorry, but that's another variation of this new Hound mold. The only difference between this new Hound mold and Detritus or Detritus, however you say it, is the head sculpt. That's it. The accessories are the same. Everything else is the same, just the head sculpt. And it's really interesting because we were not expecting to get another variation of that mold before we get the original Hound, but that's kind of how it turned out. And still, for the longest time, until this day, we were still expecting to see that Hound as a solo, separate release, a part of that buzzworthy Bumblebee Target exclusive subline. But just until now, we actually finally have our answer. We'll actually be a part of the Selects line, a part of a multi-pack. So we finally have our answer. So it's a very interesting, long backstory that I hope I described the best I could so you could understand. But kind of getting into my thoughts of the figure. I have to say, I'm actually really happy they're finally allowing us to kind of know more about it. And I probably will purchase this multi-pack because I actually do really like this mold. I actually really like Detritus. If you watch my review, I was really positive. I thought it was a massive improvement over the Siege Deluxe Class Hound mold. I think that mold is okay, but they took that mold and just got rid of all the kibble. The accessories are better, the articulation is better, the tolerances are better. It was just a massive improvement overall. So I was really hoping, of course, when I got Detritus, I was like, okay, where's the Hound repaint? And I was waiting and waiting and waiting. So now we finally know it probably will be coming out in 2024 at some point, at some time. So that's probably one figure I'm really looking forward to. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this entire pack or set, but if I do buy this, I definitely will be keeping this Hound. And as I mentioned before, I'm assuming most likely the accessories that came with that other variation from Legacy Evolution Wave 4 will be be the exact same ones that come with this Hound, just in a different color scheme to match Hound's typical color scheme. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this figure. Now moving on to the next one. We actually do have the Deluxe Class Jazz. Definitely one of the more predictable, kind of expected figures. I'm assuming most likely they're just going to take the 86 Jazz mold from the Stu Series 86 line, and there probably will be no new tooling, probably the same accessories, maybe just a brand new color scheme, and that's it. It might just be a bit more cartoony, you know, a bit more simplified, a bit more G1-y, and that's it. So not much to talk about there. I actually do not have, the original Stu Series 86 Jazz mold. I do have a few of the variations, like I do have Knockout, I do have Jackpot, so maybe this will be a good opportunity to get this figure. I think the mold is okay. I do have a few problems. I think there's a bit too much hollowness here and there, which I'm assuming those same complaints I have will still be present on this one, but maybe I'll give this version of the mold a chance. And now for the next figure, a part of this multi-pack, we do have the Deluxe Class Wheeljack. So this is one of the more interesting ones. So I think I could see this going of one of two ways. The very easy way is they could just easily take that Earthrise Wheeljack mold, which I have to say I think is a really good mold. I actually still do own that Earthrise Wheeljack to this day. I think it's a very good Deluxe Class figure. Probably one of my favorite Deluxes from Earthrise. So they could easily, you know, just take that mold, just, you know, slap on a new coat of paint, make it look a bit more cartoony, a bit more G1. I think that's going to be kind of the main theme of this Selects pack. I think it's going to be very G1-y, very original, very cartoony. That's my assumption anyway, but they could just easily do that, you know, pack in the same accessories, same transformation, same alt mode, or they could go a different way. I don't think they're probably going to do this, but I am open to the possibility in case you guys are interested. What they could do is, recently we actually discovered they will be making an Origin Wheeljack, because they made a Bumblebee and a Jazz, as I mentioned before, and they're going to kind of continue along that, you know, first episode of the G1 series, and that was actually shown off and revealed with the Armada Titan Class Tidal Wave, so they could actually take that Origin Wheeljack mold if they didn't want to reuse the Earthrise one, and they could just heavily retool that base to make it more of the Earth form, because of course you do have to keep in mind that Origin Wheeljack is his Cybertronian form, so if they were to use that new mold, they'd actually have to do quite a bit of new tooling, because the alt modes are very different. You know, his Cybertronian form is that very futuristic box, but his Earth form is that race car. So those are really the only two ways I see it going. I don't think it's going to be, you know, a separate new mold. I don't think they're going to come up with a new one. I think I either see them using the Earthrise one or that buzzworthy Bumblebee Origin one. We'll just have to wait and see. But as for the next figure, we actually do have the Deluxe Class Sunstreaker, kind of the more obvious one, sort of like Jazz. I see them just taking that Earthrise one and just slapping on a new coat of paint, maybe a new accessory, but I'm assuming they'll probably just include that same sort of engine piece that acted as a blaster like with the previous version. I actually still do own the Earthrise one, which I think is a very good figure. I see no problems with it, you know, that won't like change on this one. I think whatever complaints I had on the original most likely will stay the same on this new release. I really only see one reason or two reasons why people would, you know, kind of want this new release is if you missed the original Earthrise Sunstreaker, and they could possibly fix one thing. I do have a few complaints with the Earthrise Sunstreaker, but I don't think all of them can be fixed if they're going to use the same molds. But one major problem people had was the color matching between the painted yellow and the, of course, plastic yellow. It was a very big difference. It was like you could obviously tell they were different, and it looks so off and ugly. So if they go for a new deco, a more cartoon accurate, a more G1, they could try and fix that kind of color matching so it'll look a bit better. So those are really the only two reasons why I could see people wanting this figure. Again, I already do have the Earthrise release, so if they do fix that color matching problem, maybe I'll give this figure a chance. If not, I might just kind of give that away to a friend or sell it or something like that. But as for the final figure, I think this is actually a pretty interesting one. I'm actually really glad they included this figure in this pack. It is the Deluxe Class Trailbreaker, which I actually did sell my Trailbreaker off. Again, I assume they're most likely just going to take that Earthrise mold, slap on a new coat of paint, maybe add a new accessory, but they're probably just going to keep that same shield and blaster accessory from before. Transformation will most likely be the same. The alt mode will most likely be the same. I sold mine off because I thought it was just an okay mold. I thought the articulation could be better. There was a lot of arm kibble, so the posability wasn't the greatest. I don't really see them fixing that because they would have to do a good amount of retooling. You know, the transformation would have to drastically change. So if it's like the same figure as before, I probably will just give that away. But I'm actually still glad they included this figure in this pack, because when I sold that Trailbreaker off, that was actually going for some pretty good money on the aftermarket. For deluxe, I saw it going for $50 and $55, almost $60. So if you missed out on that Trailbreaker the first time and you don't want to buy the Masterpiece one, this is a really good chance to get that deluxe. Again, I think it's an okay figure, just it wasn't my favorite, so I sold it off. But if the new deco really impresses me, or maybe if there's some new tooling, I will give it a shot. But that's really all I have to say on these figures. Again, since it's a part of the Selects line, I don't really see that much new tooling or new pieces added. Usually Selects are just kind of another way to give fans a chance to get those figures. And occasionally with the Selects line, they will throw in a new mold, kind of like the Hound. You could consider him a new mold if you have yet to get Detritus, so you could consider that a new figure. So probably I'm not expecting that much new tooling, but I could be wrong. But that's all I really have to say. I do hope you enjoyed this Thundertron Podcast 7. If any more images or news comes out about this pack, like the price, because there is no information on the price, if I were to have to guess right now, I'd assume probably in the $100 to like $120 range, because this is like 5 deluxes, so it's quite a bit of figures. But leave your thoughts on this pack in the comment section down below, and I will see you next time.